So we're spending time in our Brooklyn, New York studios. David Rawnsley, Vice President of Player Personnel, and of course, 3.5 decades of scouting on his resume. My name is Darren Sutton. Thanks for hanging out with us ahead of the 2025 season. And with the National League East in our focus, this is perfect games down on the farm. David, it's a combination, and the recipe is this. These guys are good. You're going to pick one guy from each team. These are your notes, thank you. You're going to pick one guy from each team, but instead of talking about why they're going to be great in the big leagues only, you're going to talk about how they got there. You happened to see them when they were teenagers.
Yeah, in fact, some of these players in the East we saw as 14-year-olds and maybe even younger. And it's so fun watching the whole trajectory of how players improve, where they came from. Yes, we all hope they're going to be future big league stars, especially for our own favorite team. But looking back to when they played in the 14U Festival or when they were at the Junior National going into their junior year, that's fun stuff too, watching arms go from low 80s to mid 90s. That's part of the whole baseball journey for all these young men.
All right, Atlanta Braves, you are on our board first, and we talk about a gifted pitcher who, if you're a Brave and you're a pitcher, that's already, you jump ahead in the line. And so we look closely at Hurston Waldrep. They did in college at Southern Miss in Florida. But you did back in 2019 at the 17U WWBA. Played for a team called the Florida Aces, touched 91 miles an hour, just a few more than a half dozen perfect game events. What do you recollect about that guy about right then?
I've had to go back and look at my notes about his guy. Because one thing, and if you look at all these players we've talked about, just not in the East but others, there's this group of pitchers who end up being ranked 489th, 491st, ranked 500, and they become prospects when they go to college. You know, Waldrep was a 88-91 guy in high school. That separates him from nobody essentially amongst the top 500 pitchers in the country. Everybody throws 91 now, but he developed so much, first, as you said, at Southern Mississippi, and second of all at Florida, and became not only a first-round pick, but a fast-track first-round pick. And his whole key was developing split finger. You know, he went from throwing upper 80s to mid 90s, maybe even higher at times. But he developed that killer pitch that he didn't have in high school, and that's the split finger. And that's what made the difference. What's made him a guy that went from the draft to the big leagues in less than a year from the guy we saw back in high school.
Oh, I love that pitch. Made me want to grab one of those baseballs and grip the split. What a nasty pitch that is. So, something interesting, by the way, we've talked throughout many of these segments. A lot of these men, when they were boys, were elite athletes, multiple sports. He was one of the best kickers, punters in the state of Georgia. He went to Thomasville High School. He was twice Special Teams Georgia Player of the Year. So, earns it with his arm now, but he could kick. Real quickly, give me your 3 first-round pick All-Americans. Okay. You have a whole thing, right?
Trivia question. Try this on anybody. Nobody's going to get it. The top pick in the baseball draft, number one overall selection. 3 of them were Division I kickers. Division I kickers in football. So we're talking about limited number. I mean, that's only like 60 people to choose from.
I can't hang on end. So here's what I guessed. Darren Erstad, Nebraska, Adley Rutschman, Oregon State, but I didn't get the third.
No one ever gets the third, but Phil Nevin was a kicker for Cal State Fullerton back when Cal State Fullerton had a Division I football program.
We knew we'd find a way to sneak in David's favorite trivia question. Okay, so excited for Waldrep, the fast, the split, they play, big-time athlete. By the way, pitched in the big leagues, had his big league debut in a couple of outings against Washington and Tampa Bay. We go from a pitcher to a catcher, and excited to see what the Marlins do, period. Of all the teams in this Eastern Division, this is the one right now with the biggest hill to climb at the major league level, certainly. But they can climb it fast. And Joe Mack, we've known him for quite some time. Simple name, Joe Mack. I love that, but he played for East Cobb. He's a New Yorker, East Amherst, New York. And as Joe evolves now, about 400 games in the minor leagues, what has he evolved into, and who was he back then?
Well, back then, when he was 14U at the 14U Festival, he was one of the elite bats.
2017.
Yes, he was one of the elite bats in that class, and he stayed one of the elite bats in that class through much of his high school year. He was ranked 15th in his draft class, which is awfully impressive for a catcher. But what he's done, and you could see it happening slowly in high school, and it's really quickened in minor league ball, is he's become such a better defensive catcher in all aspects. The athleticism in his lower half, the arm strength. So he went from being a premium bat guy at a premium defensive position to being a guy who is the premium defender potentially at the big league level at the premium position. And the Marlins need catchers. And yes, Joe Mack was a 20-year-old in Double-A, last year, excelled. But with the Marlins big league situation behind the plate, he's got a chance to contribute in 2025, and it would be a great evolution for him as a prospect to get to the big leagues that quickly.
Homer, too, started homering a lot last year. 24 home runs, slugged .470. A couple of things that are interesting about him. He did win a Rawlings minor league gold glove. That's how far he's come. He threw out 34%, 33 caught stealing last year. Alex Smith is one of the scouts that signed him, $2.5 million. And was a Clemson commit. The other thing I find interesting, this all-around athlete thing, was a great basketball and volleyball player in high school. Joe Mack, good all-around athlete, so excited to stop with him. Now, we go from a team that's climbing to a team that is always expected to play deep into the playoffs. And it's tough when you spend like you do when you're the New York Mets, we're in New York and Brooklyn, to get to the big leagues. But maybe Brandon Sproat can do that. I mean, maybe this young man out of Pace High School, which is up there in the Panhandle, kind of by Gonzales Tate up there, Pace High School. Next level baseball, his travel ball. But maybe Brandon Sproat, who grew up in Florida, can crack things and step in and help the Mets this year.
Yeah, he, much like Waldrep in high school, was that guy who was 88 to 91, maybe touching 92. Was pretty well known as a prospect. I think he ranked in the 400s. It's kind of a catch-all for that type of pitcher in the perfect game rankings. But he experienced a big velocity jump his senior year at Pace. He was up to 95, 96 as a senior and really started getting some scouting attention. And in fact, almost signed out of high school, but went to Florida and added even more velocity to where he was a, 98 to 101 type of guy. And he's always frustrated scouts because he has the velocity, but he isn't as dominant as a pitcher in scouts' minds should be with that velocity. And I made a comparison to him after reading more about him to Nate Eovaldi, who's been a big league starter now with the Red Sox and the Rangers for a long time, because he was the same guy in high school. Could throw as hard as anybody in high school, but had nothing else. And the big thing for Sproat, and he's starting to develop more now in the Met system as opposed to at Florida, is developing those secondary pitches to take advantage of that elite velocity that he started developing as a high school senior and is even built upon now.
You guys all dreamt on him, though. He's drafted 3 times, so I know he might frustrate you. Dreamt on him. He was drafted 3 different times.
It's easy to dream on somebody who throws naturally, mid to upper 90s and will touch triple digits as a 19, 20-year-old. That's why scouts want to see more. They wanted him to be a top 10 pick, not just a first round pick. They were, this guy can be an elite top of the draft guy. And maybe for Mets fans, maybe he gets there. Maybe he gets there very soon, maybe whether it's in the bullpen initially or as a starter.
His whip in college was 1.4. As a pro, it's 1.1. He's getting better as he gets older. His walk rate went down in college each and every year. Those pitches David's talking about, it's a slider, it's a changeup, it's a cutter. He's added all of those, and all of those secondary pitches are really good. Brett Campbell is a scout that helped to find him and helped to sign him, and that signing bonus was like $1.5 million. Now, the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm always respectful because all of our leaders here at Perfect Game TV are in the Philadelphia area, and they're big Philadelphia Philly fans. So you picked carefully, but this is a guy that's pretty easy for you. We saw the long and lean Justin Crawford as a Vegas kid and a high schooler. Playing for CBA's John Pano was the leader of the CBA, still is of that group. He was playing for them. But you didn't know who he was till you saw all that length fly.
The speed was incredible. He gets his speed from his father.
Dad.
Carl played 14 years in the big leagues, an incredible big leaguer, one of the fastest players as well, but a different type of athlete. Justin, long and lean, and the big thing with him was, is he going to be strong enough to hit? Because he had the length and he had elite speed. And you could see it almost month by month the summer before his senior year. He is getting stronger. The hormones, the work ethic kicked in, and you could see him literally month to month get stronger to where at the All-American Classic, he was hitting balls out of Petco during batting practice, and we never thought we'd see that even a few months before. And he's continued to build on that, and he's as good an athlete as there is in the minor leagues, with the speed, with the size, with the power. He's got great barrel to ball skills. If he just continues getting a little bit stronger, he can literally be a top 10, top 20 player in baseball. I think he has that high a ceiling, given his defense and center, his speed, his projection as a hitter. If he becomes a 15, 20 homer guy, he's a perennial all-star.
Here's what I like about him, and I want to know as a scout what you make of this decision in player development. Young man comes out of high school, 1,572 and a third innings, 1,572 innings defensively, only in center field. They've never put him anywhere else, anywhere, not in a corner, not on a corner infield. He has played every single inning defensively at center field. What do you make of that? That's a compliment to me.
It's a compliment, but it's also, back when 30 years ago when I worked for the Houston Astros, we had similar situations with outfielders, and we learned, no, they need to play different positions, because you never know who you're going to have in center field. The Phillies might make a trade and bring in an all-star center fielder, because they've had sort of issues in center field, and the Phillies are.
Maybe they think they have one, an all-star.
Yeah,
center fielder.
I think they have one more year, but who knows what's going to happen in the next year? Maybe Brandon Marsh goes and plays center field and hits 320 with power, and he stays in center field. It's like, okay, wouldn't you rather have Justin Crawford in left? Now, I think just from a developmental point of view, learning how to play the other positions is the best way to do it. You let your shortstop play some second and some third for the same reason.
That's why I asked the question. That's a great answer. By the way, Philadelphia's hitting prospect of the year last year. Couple of notes. His mom, Amy Freeman's a star. I know we mentioned Dad, but none of this developing happens on and off the field without Amy Freeman. Kudos to you, Amy. Was a great part of storytelling when he was a PG athlete. Stolen bases every year, 10 stolen bases, 47 stolen bases, 42 stolen bases. Last year, July 1st to the end of the year, which included a bump up where he struggled for just a little bit, his 48 games to end the season, he had 70 hits. 70 hits in 48 games. He's coming. He's coming to the big leagues. I love this man. You don't think, I'll just leave it at that. All right, from the Philadelphia Phillies, who have high expectations, to now the Washington Nationals do too, because they have 1 million PG alum super prospects. And one of the more fun is to talk about this man, Dylan Crews. He rewrote the history books, the record books, gave back to the community while at LSU. First of all, he chose to go to college, not to pro ball, and man, did he do the right thing. He really did. You remember his junior year high school?
Yeah, he was in the 2020 class, which was, of course, the pandemic year.
Kind of a lost class.
The lost class, but he was so well known as a prospect. I mean, he probably turned down $2.5, $3 million out of high school.
Okay.
And to pass on that, to go to LSU, but he had a vision of what type of player he was, and he has certainly come through with that. Like you said, Golden Spikes Award winner, SEC Athlete of the Year.
All sports.
All sports.
Across all sports, the male athlete of the year.
Yeah, just was a dominant player and just as good a human being, just represented the game well. But he's been that way since he was 14 years old. He was a catcher at the 14U Select Fest. At age of 14, he was throwing 74 and popping 1-9s as a catcher. And it's just intriguing to, what if he'd stayed at catcher? But Dylan Crews, when I think of him, he has never been the best athlete on a baseball field. And he runs a 6'6", 6'7", he throws low 90s. He's a 6 foot, 190-pound guy. There's nothing that stands out hugely physically like a Justin Crawford, but he's always been really the best baseball player on a field. He does all the little things well. He hits, he's always hit. He's obviously always hit. And he's just always been the best baseball player on the field without having the best tools. And after seeing him so much, I have no doubt he's going to end up in the big leagues in a very similar way.
Loved having conversations with he and his family, George and Kim, his parents. Interesting note on his play. He had, in combined AA, AAA, in the big leagues this year, 37 stolen bases. What gives there?
I think it's
smarts.
It's smarts. It's smarts. One of those. Yeah, he's an average runner on a big league scale now. He's certainly not a plus runner, but the amount he's played, he spends a lot of time on base too. But he's just learned how to play like there's a lot of players through, a lot of the 30-30 guys in big league history have been really like Jeff Bagwell stealing 30-some bases and all. And Cruz is one of those elite level base runners that contribute to his being the best player on the field so often, because he does all those things. He's smart, he watches the game, he learns, and with stealing bases at a premium, that's just another tool that he can bring to a winning organization.
He's so Florida, by the way, so Florida. And I know he went to LSU, but while others would go off other places in the summertime, he played in the Florida Collegiate League because he wanted to be home. Now, he was twice a member of the USA Collegiate National Team, which no one does. To be twice on that team, but then he'd go home and play with his buddies in Florida. I love that about him. Made his big league debut, obviously, this year. His first 5 hits, 2 doubles, 2 homers. Yankees and Cubs were the opposing teams. I think it was a shape of things to come. It's a fun class, this Eastern Division in the National League. Really enjoyed, breaking them down. Cruz maybe at the top of the line, but in a division with a lot of pressure on them to win, outside of maybe Miami, there's some players that could have big moments in a pressure-packed division, including Washington.
Yeah, and this doesn't even, these organizations have more than just this one prospect. Some of these organizations go deeper. It's going to be fun to continue to think about the top prospects in this division and delve into them in the future.
All of their journeys started at Perfect. The game events, we take them to the big leagues, we hope, on a show like this. He's David, I'm Darren in our Brooklyn, New York studios. Thanks for spending just a few minutes with us on Perfect Game TV. Perfect games down on the farm ahead of the 2025 season.